Hello, my fellow Barsoomians. I come to you with Llana of Gathol. Llana of Gathol. There's two L's there. I want to say Llana of Gathol. I don't know. Llana of Gathol. Llana of Gathol. I'm going to go Llana of Gathol because it's more Martian. This is the number 10 in the Edgar Rice Burroughs Barsoomium series, all set on the planet of Mars, a science fiction fantasy Mars, which has giant multi-limbed green aliens, red Martians, black Martians, white Martians, yellow Martians, and all sorts of fearsome creatures, often with multi-legs. They seem to have all been kind of descended from insects. The inhabitants of Mars are all oviparous, a word that will now be burned in my head, meaning born from an egg. Yes, all the humans, all the humanoid creatures on this planet are born from eggs. Deja Thoris, that hottie that John Carter loved so much that we only gets mentioned in Llana of Gathol, was oviparous, very hot oviparous babe. So yes, Llana of Gathol. The final novel that was actually published in Edgar Rice Burroughs' final Barsoomium novel, he's a very prolific fellow, published in Edgar Rice Burroughs' lifetime. It's 4 stories that were published in 1941 in Amazing Stories, and they actually all kind of Lego set together to make one complete novel. They'll have that episodic feel to it, but to be honest, a lot of Edgar Rice Burroughs, all the other Barsoomium novels have pretty much that same kind of episodic. Tune in next week, kids, to find out what happens to John Carter as he goes through his amazing adventures. And actually, as is appropriate for what's maybe kind of my final run with Barsoom, this is a story that is focused on John Carter of Mars. John Carter, originally of Virginia, but now very firmly, as he reflects in this book, he's a Martian now. He's kind of left his thing behind. So, as with most of these things, opens in Hawaii. No, actually, we'll get back to that the opener. There's always a little frame story for Barsoom novels where we have to kind of increase the believability by having a little frame story of how this story got beamed from Mars to Earth and how we're reading it here now in this thing. But the general actual story that kind of goes through this is John Carter's efforts after kind of just having a little wander because he likes to be alone. He has his solitude moments. After we get past that, it's basically about getting his granddaughter Llana of Gathol home again. As it starts out, he goes off for a bit of private time, gets enmeshed in a story with in the city of Hortz with these white Martians, not the Thermian white Martians, but these are actual. They don't have wigs or anything. These are actually, God, there's so much history, but yes, these white Martians, and finds this creepy dude underneath who's been hypnotizing people for thousands, millions of years, and it seems this hypnosis actually preserves them, and he finds in the chest coincidence, because Edgar Rice Burroughs is always all about the very efficient pulp vehicle of the coincidence. He happens to find his granddaughter Llana of Gathol, daughter of Terra of Helium and Gahan of Gathol, pops out of one of these chests saying like, "Oh, I was getting back home at Gathol. I was getting creeped on by this northern red Martian Jetic Hin Abtal, and I decided to leave. He came after me, killed all my people. I ended up here in this cavern. Just happened to be. Good luck that. But it's like, this is when I think I've come to embrace the coincidence in Edgar Rice Burroughs stories. It's like, this is how he crams these stories into like basically what are little novellas. But by using a coincidence, like, a modern author couldn't use a coincidence. Modern author would be like Brandon Sanderson. They would have to devote an entire 900-page tome to get you from the spots that Edgar Rice Burroughs just gleefully hops to. And there's a part of me that actually kind of enjoys that. Like, okay, look, this is all nonsense anyways. Let's just get a coincidence so we can chop out 900 pages and just sandwich it together. So yes, he finds his granddaughter in a chest. He finds a love interest for her as well, Pandan Chi, who immediately falls in love with Llana, but Llana plays hard to get and says, "Oh, you have to fight for me." It's like, "Oh, I battled off a Banth," which is a gigantic multi-limbed tiger creature. It's like, or lion creature. It's like, "Oh, you've only fought against an animal. You have to fight against men for me." So she's playing hard to get. And John Carter's like, "I don't understand these women," which is, his usual thing. This is more fun, more of the stuff that I expected from Edgar Rice Burroughs. There's the Black Pirates of Barsoom, which are these firstborn black Martians who we get a recitation yet again of the kind of the creation story. This idea of there's a tree of life with all these little kind of baubles hanging off of it, and they dropped off the thing and they bounced around. And one of the first ones that opened, at least according to the Black Martians, was a black Martian, and he popped open and opened that, and all his mates came out. It's sort of like, everyone's oviparous and they all come from eggs, so it's a kind of an interesting creation story, and views like all the other races of Mars, that they all evolved from like, white apes and stuff like that. Terrible kind of, that kind of lower evolution. So they've got the superiority thing. But yes, it's another one of that. So they get captured by them, and then the next part 3, there's this whole thing with Hin Abtal and him capturing them, and he's of course bent on world domination, and he's frozen a gigantic army of soldiers in his northern reach, and he's going to sweep down and get everybody, but he's a coward and is not really good at a lot of stuff. And then in the final section we get Invisible Men, which I read a review somewhere where they were like, "Oh, Invisible Men, how unrealistic." It's like, there's telepathy, there's everything in this story is unbelievable, and all the coincidences that happen are laughable, but you just kind of embrace all that. So I'm really surprised coming to number 10 of this series, just how consistent it is. I mean, maybe that's probably one of the reasons why this series probably fell off in popularity as it went along, is like, this is 1941, and I think we started in, trying to remember what year now. It was like the 1950, year up here where the series started, but it's like it hasn't actually changed through all this time. It stayed the same. Well, probably, all around it the world has changed, and so I can see that. But really, if you go into this series, I find, like, if you like book 1, you're probably going to like book 10. Well, as long as you don't get tired of the Princess in Perils, the amazing coincidences, the really kind of fun little kind of ideas. There are less kind of weird ideas in this book. There's no brain swapping. There's no there's no, the atmosphere planets. We get a little bit of a recitation of kind of greatest hits on some of the stuff here, the Firstborn and the origin story and stuff like that. But still, the kind of the core kind of just adventure stuff is all still there. And I have to say, I kind of really enjoy this. And this is actually for me, because I was toying, like, oh, was I going to go on to the last little thing, number 11, which is John Carter of Mars, just for completion's sake. But I think this book actually made a good case for actually saying, hey, here's a good spot for you to stop. This book opens in Hawaii, where Edgar Rice Burroughs is, and he's visited again by John Carter of Mars, who, it's like Edgar Rice Burroughs is surprised, like, oh, I never expected to see you again. And, John Carter is like, well, I wanted to make the point of seeing you because you're the last of my Earth kin that actually, that he knew personally, and that, you're going to be dead soon, and there's, there won't be a reason for me to return. And Edgar Rice Burroughs says, oh, well, my children won't be frightened of you. You could return them. And John Carter goes, like, he kind of half promises, oh yeah, maybe I'll come back. Maybe I'll come back and stuff like that. But it's got that really kind of that thing of like, here's the creator, Edgar Rice Burroughs, meeting his creation, John Carter. And it's like, oh, here's our last meeting. This is like, I'm not going to be around. And indeed, as I said, this is the last published Barsoom novel that was the last book in the Barsoom series that was published in his lifetime. So it has kind of a nice kind of a like, here's one last story from my creation. It's like that my creation gave me. So it's I think I love that. There's even like within the story itself, there's at a point where John Carter is thinking about all the kind of the women in his life, of thinking of them all gathered together, of Deja, Thoris, Thuvia, Tara, and Llana. It's like there's a kind of like these are and his catharsis and his son and all the other kind of John Carter avatars actually that kind of got put in as other viewpoint characters. So it's got that kind of nice kind of close to it. And it's funny, there's an odd symmetry of, the first novel is called A Princess of Mars, and you expect, we're going to get lots about Deja Thoris, but Deja Thoris is more just like the object of desire for John Carter in that book. Whereas in Llana of Mars, we get a little bit of Llana of Mars at the beginning, and her being kind of, escaping Hin Abtal and kind of being smart and all that. But then, no, it's all about John Carter trying to find his granddaughter and rescue his granddaughter and get his granddaughter home for safety, and possibly having to pretend to fall in love with a woman who of course has fallen in love with him. But there's actually a nice little switch on that one, which is like, okay, Edgar Rice Burroughs knew that these were tropes and were cliches, were things that got done a lot. So he kind of like did a little reversal there, which was like, okay, that's nice. That's nice. He's a smart. Edgar Rice Burroughs is a smart creator who's aware that he was using this stuff, that he was aware that he was toying with his audience. He's aware that he was making all these silly jumps, but he was doing it for a reason, for that kind of ruthless pulp efficiency, that fun breakneck speed that we're not going to slow down to explain all this dumb stuff. We're just going to let it be a coincidence and keep on going. So yeah, this was the nice conclusion for me. For those curious, John Carter of Mars, the next in the series is 2 stories. One of those stories isn't even by Edgar Rice Burroughs; it's by his son. The other one, it's a Skeleton Men of Jupiter, which was published in 1943, was going to be like Llana of Mars. It was going to be part 1 in a 4-part thing, which was going to, so it never got completed. It's basically the start. It sounds like it's just basically the start of the story. Maybe it has a little wrap up in that thing, but this feels so lovely as this thing of John Carter coming and telling his creator, one more story. Let me tell you about Llana of Gathol. And then it turning out to be just a whole big story about how John Carter rescues Llana of Gathol, which is the usual thing. But yeah. So that was my Barsoom series read for this year. And if I pump out like all the other videos that I have on backlog here because of various things have just kind of lay fallow in my computer, this will also come out tomorrow. I don't know if it'll come out tomorrow. Synthetic Man of Mars will come out tomorrow. Maybe this will come out tomorrow too. I'll just flush everything for the start of whatever the new year brings me. I've been thinking about that, and I'm sure I'll have thoughts on that that I'll either share, or you'll just sort of see the results of what I decided in the coming year. But yes, thank you, Edgar Rice Burroughs, in a real dumpster fire of a year. That was 2020. Having these novels to read was a lot of fun. And thank you to the OG, if disappearing people who started the Marsathon read along, which kind of became the my Barsoom, just me reading Barsoom novels by myself, which I'm fine with. I like standing in this room and just talking to myself. Yeah, so Pints and Paperback and all the other fellows who started out on this journey and then immediately dropped off for their own reasons. It has been a dumpster fire. For whatever reason, this is what I needed right now, and I'm very grateful for that. So thank you to Edgar Rice Burroughs. Thank you to the fellows of Marsathon. Thank you to people who watched these videos and enjoyed them. And maybe who didn't enjoy them and rolled their eyes and were like, oh my God, he's still going. Yes, thank you to all you too. All right, more videos later.